with James Kirklin. Powerful and provocative, prophetic and practical.
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
Informative and inspirational. How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do. Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager. Intellectuals do with James Kirklin. Intellectuals do. Intellectuals do. Intellectuals do. Intellectuals do with James Kirklin. Intellectuals do. Intellectuals do. Intellectuals do. Intellectuals do with James Kirklin. Intellectuals do. Intellectuals do.
All right, I know you're still holding everybody else up. Hold on, let me stop this. Music gonna start again. Let me stop it. Oh,
Intellectuals do with
here's time I went so through. Oh, there we go. My bad. Hold on, here I come, y'all. All right, there we go. Let me cut it off. I got to share it with some more people though. So hold on if y'all don't mind. I got a few people I need to share this with because we did start a new night and some people might not be aware. So let them make them aware and hopefully they'll be able to tap into this conversation that we're going to have tonight. I'm hot. It is sweating. I'm sweating like a stucco. All right. So yeah. So things have changed drastically in my life. So I'm going to be moving around, doing things a little bit different. So hopefully, yeah, y'all will tap in and get used to this new night. I'm not fighting Monday night football anymore. So I would rather just, yeah, I'd rather just take my chances on Tuesday night and see what we can come up with, because as of right now, Mondays have been cool. And the reason I started with Monday several years ago was because at that time I was traveling. And because I was traveling, I didn't always know that if I would be available on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or any other day. So I went with Mondays because I knew for sure that I would be on Monday. So I would be home on Monday. So for 4 years, we've been doing this. And for all 4 years, we've been doing it on Monday night. Every now and then we might do a Tuesday night. Sometimes we might do something midweek. We might do something midweek so we could like a pop-up special edition or something like that. But I think, don't hold me to it, but I think Tuesday nights are going to be the night. I think Tuesday nights are going to be the night. So I'm kind of rambling right now, giving people a few minutes to come in. Because like I said, some people aren't aware. I've been trying to market it and put it out there and let people know that we have switched nights. But some of them might not have gotten the memo just yet. And if they have not gotten the memo yet, we'll just have to build up and let them know that our time has changed. So let me hold on, I got to go to YouTube right quick, because I do have some people that only watch on YouTube. And if you don't watch on YouTube, feel free to watch on YouTube. I really, sometimes I think I would prefer you watch on YouTube, but you can't see Facebook's comments if you're watching on YouTube. So it's kind of a catch-22. So, but I appreciate all of you all for your support. I know a lot of times people don't get a chance to see it and to see the show until the replay, and that's cool. I really do. Like I said, I really do appreciate your support. I appreciate those that encourage me with encouraging words. One of my love languages is words of affirmation. So love me on my love language. Words of affirmation. That's what I do, man. So that's what I do. So I'm trying to find one more thing, and then I'm going to actually get this thing going for real. I'm waiting on some people. I got the reason I keep doing this, I ain't gonna lie, because sometimes it gets discouraging. But the reason I do this is because of the people who encourage me by telling me, they need this word. I have one particular person. He tells me that he don't go to nobody's church, and that the only Bible study he really gets is the intellectual student. So if it's just for that one individual, right? If I'm making sure that he gets what he needs, then I'm doing my job. So I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. And prayerfully, like I said, some more will catch on at a later date. But until then, hey, I'll keep. Hey, what's up, Dennis? There he is. That's my buddy right there. And then not only that, I have individuals that I don't even know, and interestingly, they're all men that are reaching out to me, and some of them are in dark places. Some of them are in stuck places. Some of them have reached their existential breaking points. Some of them have contemplated quitting, and they're grasping for straws, looking for something. And I'm praying to God to give me the resources to be able to minister to these people as well, because I don't want to be guilty of them reaching out to me and I'm not able to do anything to help them in their current states and in their current positions. Because I've had a guy call me from all the way from Seattle, Washington. That's on the West Coast. That means he's 2 or 3 hours behind, and he watches what we do. I had a guy call this week from Michigan. Another brother called he was wanting prayer because he was dealing with, I think, congestive heart failure, and he thought he was going to pass away. So I had to be very sensitive and dealing with these. So if I have therapists and who are concerned, and there are those who are, but if I have those individuals who are concerned about these people, and you want to partner with this platform to make resources available, if you're really concerned, if you really care, and I think there are people who really do care. So Yeah, partner with us. Like I said, this is Tuesday night. We're gonna jump into this word here in just a moment. If you missed last week's show, go back and watch it. Okay, go back and watch it because I'm gonna recap it tonight. But I want you to go back and get the full show. Last week I was tired because I had to work prior to doing the show. I don't have to do that no more. I'm no longer working with that company. I tried it. I tried it. Good people over there, just not for me. Not for me. Kirklin is an entrepreneur by calling, and by it is what it is. I tried. But it's all gravy in the Navy. This is what I do. Might not be paying a whole lot just yet. Those who know me also know that I do life insurance. So if you have questions about life insurance, if I don't have a license in your state, let me know and what state you're in. I can get one. It don't take but a couple of minutes to make that happen. So I can get the license in whatever state I need to get that license in. But tonight we're stepping away again from open mic night. We did open mic night for several weeks where we talked about some things that were wrong with the church. That's easy. Church is an easy target. So we can always talk about what's wrong with the church. But I didn't want to stay on that. Every now and then I got to go back to my stewing over scripture. Y'all know who I am. I'm a preacher by calling. I'm a preacher by calling. So there are moments that I'm going to have to jump back in and do stewing over scripture. And that's for people like Dennis, because Dennis said this is the only Bible study he gets. So we're going to jump in this word in just a moment. I see a few people who have been dipping in and out. Do me a favor. When you come in, if you don't mind, will you share this? And if you share it with an endorsement, people have a tendency of responding. Your particular circle, they have a tendency of responding a little differently. They might come if you tell them what you get out of it, or how you enjoy it, or how it blesses you. Okay. And do me a favor, be my amen corner tonight. Y'all, if I say something good, talk back to the preacher tonight. Say amen. If you're going to do like Dennis, say bars, say something, but let me know that I'm on if I'm on. All right. So welcome back to the Intellectual Stew. Last week we stepped away from open mic night and we dove into stewing over scripture. We didn't even really get past the introduction, to be honest with you. I take that back. We did get a little past the introduction, but we only got about 4 of the 8 points in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to recap the points, give us a little history to lead back up to this particular place where we are, and then we'll move forward. Okay, so tonight as we press forward, let's recap where we've been. The name of the lesson is, you can see it right there, I wasn't hiding, I was hidden. That's an amazing revelation. I'm trying to show y'all my chest hair. Let me put this up, button up a little bit. That's an amazing revelation, right? To realize at a certain point, to have that theophany, right? That theophany, that moment where you thought you were running out of fear, only to discover at a later date that the fear that you were experiencing was actually, it wasn't really just normal fear, it was really fuel. And that fuel was furthering you towards your future. That's a shocking, what's up, Cynthia Alcorn? That's a shocking reality, right? To realize, or to come to the realization that what you had assigned as fear, right? Because that's how fear works. Fear paralyzes. That's why if you look at 1 Peter 5, when it talks about a roaring lion, lion isn't the fastest animal, right? So there are a lot of animals that would be able to get away from the lion if it wasn't frozen by the fear of the roar. So that's why when Peter talks about it, he says, be sober, be vigilant, for your adversary is as a roaring lion, not just a lion, but as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, right? Because the roaring lion is the lion, it is the power, because that roar stifles the enemy. And I don't know who I'm talking to, but somebody under the sound of my voice, because you've been listening to the roar of the lion, I encourage you to hit the mute button. I encourage you to turn down the noise. I encourage you to be careful about who you're listening to, because there are those who operate as metaphorical roaring lions that come into your life to make you become frozen in fear so that you won't move forward. But can I tell you something? Sometimes healthy fear, and understand the Hebrew etymology of the word fear. The Hebrew etymology of the word fear means respect, right? That means there's certain things you just have to respect. And when you respect those things, then you'll understand your process better. So many times in life, we'll think that we were running away from something, only to discover later in life that we weren't running away. The fact of the matter was we were running to something. God. And the only way we can run to it is for God to shake up our natural equilibriums, to cause us, thank you, Holy Ghost. What God will do is he'll cause us to become so uncomfortable where we used to feel comfortable, and he'll move us, he'll transport us, he'll challenge us to change, to go to another level. And that's where Moses was. Moses was on the backside of the mountain. Can I talk to somebody right now that's on the backside of your mountain? And the truth be told, because you're on the backside of your mountain, you found yourself singing the same song as a songwriter, asking the question, how did I get here? And when you quit going through your pity party, you realize when you didn't sing the song that the lyrics that she said, you didn't say I wasn't supposed to be here. You later learned that you were supposed to be here. Let me pause parenthetically and suggest this to somebody. You are right where you are supposed to be. That's good news. That's real good news. No matter how things might look, no matter how things might seem, no matter how it looks like the outcome is affected by your income, and it looks like you got more month and you got money and your money's funny, your change is strange, things, bill collectors won't leave you alone, keep on ringing your phone. You talking about the baby need a pair of shoes, but you need a pair of shoes. No matter where you are, might I suggest to you, I'm supposed to be here. In fact, somebody that's in the chat that agrees with me, I want you to put that in the chat right quick. Say, I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. I was not running out of fear, but I was running out of faith. Why do I realize I was running out of faith? I was running out of faith because I realized that when I run out of faith, I realize that the steps, whether they're running or walking, the steps of a good man are ordered, and that's not gender specific, brothers and sisters. That's not limited to men or women. That's men and women. The steps of a good man, thank you, Cynthia, are ordered by the Lord. That's why I don't worry about jobs and whether and I'm not good. Don't micromanage me. That's just not how I roll. I can't rock like that. So last week we covered, thank you, I'm supposed to be here. Somebody else put that in the chat. Say, I'm supposed to be here. I'm on the backside of the mountain right now. But do you realize there are lessons on the backside of the mountain that you can only get by going to the backside of the mountain? Had Moses not gone to Midian, he would not have gotten the lesson that was necessary for him going through Midian. So you go to Midian, but Midian is not Midian is not a destination that you go and put up a mailbox. I don't care if you go there, Kim Robinson, and stay for 40 years. It's still not a place of permanency, because rather than okay. Couple things Moses learned, and we're gonna talk about Moses more in a minute. But I want to recap last week's points before I get too far ahead of myself. We covered the first 4 P's last week. First 4 P's. Last week we discovered that when Moses ended up in Midian, first reason was for protection. It was for protection, Cynthia, because God kept Moses alive when Pharaoh wanted him dead. The reason why some of you are on the backside of the mountain right now in your period of isolation is because if God had not hidden you, then you would probably be you probably wouldn't be alive right now. Does that mean? See, God speaks to us in different seasons of our lives, right? And see, sometimes in one season, he'll show you a sneak preview of a coming attraction, right? I mean, you haven't actually walked into what he's showing you, because Daryl Coley said it like this: he's preparing me for something that I can't handle right now. He's making me ready. And see, what we don't realize when God speaks to us in the early seasons of our life is that he's preparing us for the next matter in our life. And so we operate in overzealousness. We move too fast. We put the cart before the horse, and we expose ourselves too soon. Oh God, I'm preaching better than y'all letting on tonight. So what God has to do, y'all better tag somebody else so they can get this tonight. So what God has to do is God has to put us in a period of isolation, so that, and in that period of isolation, number one is for protection, but number two is for preservation. He's preserving us. Jude said it like this: now unto him that is able to keep you. The word keep in the Greek means phulasso. The word phulasso means preserve. That means something that would have expired, something that would have died, something that would have whose lease on life would have been, the eviction notice would have been sent out. It's preserved because God takes it and puts it in a place. See, grandmama and them understood that concept, because see, my grandmama did it good. My grandmama had she lived in Sherrill, Arkansas. Some of y'all know what that is. Sherrill, Arkansas, down by Pastoria, right outside of Pine Bluff. Grandmama in her house, around her house, grandmama had a whole bunch of fruit trees. I mean, literally plum trees, apple trees. I mean, blackberry, but I mean, all of these fruit trees were around. So what grandmama would do when I was a little boy, she would have me walk with her downside the field to pick up blackberries. Y'all don't know what downside, because y'all too city, but she'd have me walk downside the field, or she'd have me go outside and pick up a bucket or a bowl of plums. And grandmama would take this fruit through a process called preservation, right? She would preserve the fruit, and it was an interesting process, because number one, she would pick the fruit. Number two, she would she would pick the fruit. Number two, she would peel the fruit. Then after she peeled the fruit, she cut the fruit up. Then after she cut the fruit up, she put it in. Now, Aunt Mabel said what my grandmama used to do. Aunt Mabel going on to glory, grandmama going to glory. But she said that my grandmama would put the fruit in a bowl and leave it out overnight, because something about leaving the fruit out overnight toughened the fruit. I could put a whole bunch of hermeneutics right there, but I don't feel like preaching just yet. But she leave that fruit out overnight, and then the next day she would take the fruit and put it in a hot situation, put it in a pan. And then when the fruit, when it was put in a pan, it went through a process where the fruit began to change forms, because heat has a way of affecting the fruit. Can I tell you something? First of all, God chose you. Number two, God allows the processes of light to peel you. And then not only that, but every now and then he'll allow certain things. What's up, Tim? He'll allow certain processes and certain circumstances in life to cut you. And then after he cuts you, he'll put you in some hot situations. But all during the process, one thing about it is that the fruit is still fruit. It's just going through a process. And when the process is over with, watch this. She puts the fruit in the pan, heats the fruit up. And when the fruit heats up, she puts it in a jar. And when she puts it in a jar, she puts mason jar. She seals that jar. And that which is in the jar is sealed. And then she used to put it in different closets. Some y'all must not have hung around y'all grandmamas. Y'all don't remember this. I get it. But she would put it in different closets all around the house. And a few months later, I would look at this concoction through the jar, and it really didn't look good. It really didn't look edible. But it never ceased to amaze me that grandmama would one day wake me up, and I would be awakened to the smell of hot butter biscuits and bacon and eggs and sausage and smothered potatoes and all these things. But then what grandmama would do is she'd pull out that concoction that didn't look good, that didn't look edible, that she used to preserve the fruit. And it would take, but you know something? The fruit would have expired. The fruit would have spoiled had she not taken it through a process of preservation. Can I talk to somebody a minute? Do you realize you would have expired? Do you realize that you would have potentially spoiled if God had not taken you to the backside of the mountain and preserved you? So he took Moses to a process of protection, to a process of preservation, but not only that, he took him through a process of preparation. During that process, he was preparing him. We'll get into that a little bit later on. He was preparing him, but at the same time, God's timing was teaching him patience. Can I talk to somebody now? Will you be honest with me? Are you not more patient because of the pain, because of the processes, because of the peril, because of all of the things that you've been through in life? If it didn't teach you anything, it taught you patience. That's why James, come here, James. Can we talk for a minute? James says, count it all joy when you fall. Not if you fall, but when you fall into diverse temptations. Why? Because knowing this, that the trying of your patience, the trying of your faith, the trying of your faith works patience. It's the processes. It's the problems. It's the peril. It's all of those things that work with patience. You know why? You know why it teaches us patience. Can I tell you why it teaches us patience? The reason why it teaches us patience, because we come away with the testimony, Kim, that if God did it back then, if he did it back then, hallelujah, he can do it again. That's why I'm more patient as I grow older in certain circumstances, because I realize that if he did it back then, he is able to do it again. Put that in the chat, somebody. And listen, if you were here last week, or if you're ready to get the rest of these points, just drop some fire. Drop some fire in the chat. Just drop some fire in the chat. Let me know you're listening. Let me know, because I'm getting ready to jump into this a little bit different. And this is going to be a series. So if I cut it off abruptly, I'm sorry. If I cut it off abruptly, I'm sorry. Some people asked me to tag them this tonight. If you've not shared it, go ahead and share it. Do that for me. But let's look at, before we go into these last 4 points, let's do a little character study on this biblical character by the name of Moses. How much do y'all really know about Moses? How many years did Moses live? Anybody know that? Anybody know that? How many years did Moses live? I'm gonna give y'all a second, a little biblical trivia. How many of you all know how many years? How old was Moses when he passed away? How old? How old was Moses? I'm giving y'all a chance. I am on my podcast, so I cannot talk. So thank you very much. Somebody tried to call me, but how many years? If you don't know, y'all can Google it right quick. If you would like, if you don't know, I want to give you all a chance to answer that. How many years did Moses? Nope. Try again. Try one more time. Wasn't quite 180. That would have been a good long life though. Wasn't quite 180 though. How many? How many years Moses lived to be? I'm gonna give it 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Some of y'all not even Googling it that quick. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Moses lived. I was gonna give y'all a prize if somebody had won it, but I got it. 120 years. I was gonna give somebody a t-shirt if they had to. It wasn't 100 either. It was 120. You shot your shot though, Cynthia. It was 120 years. Moses lived to be 120 years. Now, a couple more things about Moses. Moses was a Hebrew, but he was raised in Pharaoh's palace. How did this happen? How did this happen? How did this happen? Moses lived 120 years. Now, the first 40 years, because it's 3 segments of his life. There was 40 years that he was in Egypt, 40 years that he was in Midian, and then 40 years that he moved the children of Israel from Egypt to the promised land through the wilderness. So now Moses was born under obscure circumstances, right? Because you got, let me say this. Let me say this. All of us have a purpose. Every last one of us. All of us have a purpose, right? And we're born with that purpose. Yeah, you was only 20 years away. You were close. You might get it next time. I might put some more trivia out here. All of us were born with a purpose. In fact, scripture says he lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Grandma and them understood that. That's why they talked about letting this little light shine, right? This light that has been given to us. We have a purpose. Moses had a purpose. And understand, some of us, our assignments are different. God gives us these assignments, and these assignments, we're born with those assignments, right? He before the foundations of the earth were established, you know, we before your parents got together, did the beast with two backs and produced children, we all had a purpose. What's up, Bishop Simpson? We all have a purpose. We all have a purpose. Moses had a purpose, and the enemy knew about that purpose, and the enemy understood that, because what he did was he started playing with the Pharaoh, right? Because Joseph, who was a Hebrew, moved the children of Israel to Egypt after the famine, right? And he had a pact. He had an agreement with the Pharaoh. And because Joseph's organizational skills, his anointing, helped him save much people alive, right? It helped him preserve a generation that would have passed away or that would have died. He ended up preserving them, right? So he had this agreement for the Hebrews, but a new Pharaoh rose who knew not Joseph. So he was not going to honor the agreement between the Egyptians and the Hebrews, right? And see, the enemy, especially insecure enemies, the enemy has a way of messing with the minds of insecure leaders, because this Pharaoh, who knew nothing about God, who knew nothing about Joseph, all he saw was that the children of Israel, the Hebrews, were growing so much in number. And he was so afraid that they were growing so much that they would become powerful and overtake them or overcome them. So what he said was, let's enslave them. Let's use harsh tactics. Let's become taskmasters. Let's make them build bricks with no straw. Let's put them to work, because if we don't, then they're going to overcome us. And not only that, but let's take all of the Hebrew baby boys that are under the age of 2 years old and throw them in the Nile River, because let me let you understand this. The enemy sees the potential that's in you before we see it in ourselves. Moses wasn't even 2 years old yet. He wasn't even born yet, but he was a part of a generation that posed a threat to the Pharaoh. So what Pharaoh said was, before I give him a chance to grow, I'm going to cut off his potential. I want you to throw, because I don't want to miss one. I'm going to throw him off. Do you realize that sometimes it's not even about you? You're just a casualty of war. Because he wasn't trying to get you. In fact, you were just collateral damage. Can we talk about it? And there are those that are around you that are simply collateral damage, because the enemy has an assignment to take you out. And so because Moses had an assignment on his life, and his mama his mama understood that. His mama said, you know what? I'm going to cover him. I'm going to hide him. She hid him for about 3 months, but then she put him in a waterproof basket, put him on the Nile River, allowed him to float down the river. When he floated down the river, he floated right near where Pharaoh's daughter was. Now, Moses was a beautiful child. And if you saw him, you instantly, in fact, Pharaoh's daughter instantly fell in love with Moses when she saw him, because when she saw him, she said, I'm going to adopt him and make him my own. And not only that, but the way God orchestrated things, Kim Robinson, Pastor Rob, what he did was he orchestrated things in such a way that Pharaoh's daughter said, somebody suggested that she got a Hebrew woman to come in and wean the baby, to raise the baby. And guess who it was? Moses' mother. So Moses' mother raised him for 12 years. And then at 12, he became a prince. So for the first 40 years of his life, he was raised in Egypt in the way of the Egyptians. He was educated in Egypt. He learned under the Pharaoh, because you never know if something were to happen and Pharaoh were to pass away, then he might have been the one that was supposed to lead the Egyptians. So for the first 40 years of his life, he was raised amongst the Egyptians. Now, he's raised amongst the Egyptians, but in his DNA, he's still a Hebrew. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care about your political affiliation. I don't care about your financial accumulation. I don't care anything about your education. I could care less about any of those things. You know why I could care less anything about those? Because you are who you are, no matter how you try to run away from who you are. Who you are is just in you. Can we talk for a moment? Who you are, that's just a part of your DNA. I mean, and Moses, no matter how much he dressed like an Egyptian, no matter how much he walked like an Egyptian, no matter how much he tried to talk like an Egyptian, no matter what he did, he was still a Hebrew. And because he was a Hebrew, when there was a time that there was another Egyptian that was oppressing or persecuting one of Moses' Hebrew brothers. Can we talk for a minute? We are all brothers and sisters. I mean, I get it. I know some of y'all got nicer cars, you got nicer houses, you got more access. But at the end of the day, we're still all brothers and sisters. And when one of us hurt, we should all hurt. When one of us is down, we should all be down. I mean, we're one of the only segments of society who don't unite around the same. What's one cause we can unite around? I mean, give me one cause. I mean, Jews can unite. I mean, Latinos can unite. I mean, even white people. They around this Charlie Kirk incident, they've even shown that they can unite. But we can't ever. And I understand it, because it seems like every time we organize, or one of us gets the power to organize, somebody comes to try to discredit them. Or somebody comes and tries to eradicate the movement. I mean, think about it. Martin Luther King, think of Nelson Mandela, all of these, whenever they would get the power or gain the power to organize, somebody, but I told y'all before, what people don't understand, they try to either kick, kill, or cage it because they can't contain it. So whenever we try to organize, because they're afraid of the unity, that's why I wish I had grown up in the 70s sometimes when they were singing songs like I'm Black and I'm Proud. Because there was just a certain national pride, or certain cultural pride that existed amongst us that we just don't have anymore. Because people understood that the dividends are in division. If you keep us divided, and they know that if we're not unified, that we won't be able to stand together. And if we can't stand together, we'll definitely fall separately. Can we talk for a moment? So when Moses, even though he was an Egyptian, even though he walked like an Egyptian, even though he talked like an Egyptian, even though all of these things were transpiring, Moses still had a heart for his Hebrew brethren. So when he saw this Egyptian persecuting his brother, what did he do? Moses took his life. Not only did he take his life, but he buried him in the sand. It would have been classified as murder, what he did. He was operating in justice, right? Because he felt like, if you're doing something wrong, there's an eye for an eye, there's a tooth for a tooth. You messing with my brother. But can we talk for a moment? Everybody doesn't want you to move in their life. Some people are comfortable being oppressed. Some people are comfortable living where they are, staying stuck, not having a desire to move, right? Some people are comfortable living life on Barely Get Along Boulevard. Some of us don't even desire to go to Enough Avenue because we're comfortable. I mean, they were because you know what? After Moses unalived the Egyptian, the word got throughout Egypt that what Moses did. And guess who told? It was the people he tried to help. That's why sometimes I'm a little cautious and nervous about who I try to help. Real talk. Real talk. Sometimes I'm very cautious because I know that even everybody don't want help. And it's interesting sometimes how people tell help how to be help. Isn't that funny? Isn't it funny how people will tell help how to be help, when help shows up to help, especially when you're hurting. But sometimes hurt puts lenses and filters on your eyes that you can't recognize help when help shows up. So when help showed up and tried to help the Hebrews, they didn't want the help that was helping them. So they wanted to spread words. It's like, who does Moses think he is? We could have handled it on our own. How many of y'all ever heard some people say some stuff like that? You sacrifice. Moses put it all on the line. Because the fact of the matter is, Moses put his life on the line trying to help his brothers. Can we talk about it? Because after that, what ends up happening is, because Moses unalives the Egyptian, now Pharaoh wants to take Moses' life. And what's going on in Moses' life? Moses is now operating in fear. And when he operates in fear, he starts to run. Let me tell you this. First of all, it was a mistake for Moses because Moses exposed himself too soon. But sometimes there's an overzealousness for justice that takes place where we feel like we don't want to wait on God to get them, so we try to get them ourselves. Have y'all ever done that before? Have you ever done that before? Because you realize that you were operating with a special or a unique anointing, and you knew that God had given you power. You didn't even wait on God to get them. You tried to get them on your own. And when you tried to get them on your own, little did you know, sometimes you messed up God's opportunity to move in the timing that he wants to move. See, sometimes we want God to move in our time, and it's really not our time that we should be concerned about. We should be concerned about the God time. We should be concerned about God moving at the right time, because if God moves at the right time, things have a way of working out. You know what? I'm not really concerned about God being on time. I'm more concerned about God showing up in time. Can I get a witness right there? Just one. Can somebody say that? I'm not concerned about God showing up on time. Y'all ain't amen to me tonight. I'm really not concerned about him showing up on time. But God knows there's never been a moment, if I waited on it. Now, if I'm honest, and if you're honest, there were times that we didn't give God a chance to move because we moved in our time as opposed to in his time. And because we thought he was not on time, guess what? We thought that he was not in time, and we just and we couldn't have been more wrong, because God might not ever show up on time, but he always shows up in time. He always shows up in time. Every time he shows up in time. So let me ask you a question before we move on. For those that are listening, if you've not shared this yet, go ahead and share it for me. Let me ask this question. Has anyone here, under the sound of my voice, listening to the Intellectual Stew tonight, has anyone here ever stepped out too soon? I'm going to give you a chance to answer that. Has anyone here ever stepped out too soon? You tried to make something happen before God's timing. If that's your situation, just type "that's me" in the chat. Just say "that's me." In fact, I need to put that in the chat myself. I need to text that. I need to put that in the chat myself. If you have ever stepped out too soon, if you've ever stepped out too soon, tried to make something happen before God's timing, if so, just type "that's me." That's me. Moses was born under genocide, hidden by his mother, floated to the Pharaoh's daughter by by his mother in a basket, saw injustice, raised as an Egyptian, raised in royalty, educated in wisdom and leadership. All that. What's up, Sue-Ann? Saw injustice, killed an Egyptian, tried to bury the evidence. Word got out. Pharaoh wanted him dead. He runs, finds refuge with Jethro's family, marries Zipporah, and becomes a shepherd. All of these things happen. You know why? Because God choreographed those things. God literally, what's up, Sue-Ann? I spoke, didn't I? God literally orchestrated everything that's going on, right? Everything that happened. Moses thought he was running, but in reality, Moses was being hidden because God was hiding him. That's where I'm at tonight. Somebody in here now, I don't know who I'm talking to. Somebody listening, you might hear it on the replay. I don't know. But if I'm talking to you, drop some fire in the chat because you thought you were running. But after this, you're going to discover I wasn't running. I was hiding. I mean, God was hiding me. So last week we stopped at patience. So tonight, let's finish that journey because Moses' story shows us that when God hides you, he doesn't just hide you just to be hiding you, but he hides you with intention, right? He hides you with intention. When he hides you, he doesn't hide you just to be hiding you. He hides you with intention. So the first 4 points, number 1 was protection. Number 2 was preservation. Number 3 was preparation. Number 4 was patience. But now as we move forward, and I told you all last week I was going to jump back into this, and I didn't. I'm sorry. But the next one is purpose. The next one is purpose. Hold on. The next one is purpose. Somebody type that in the chat. Purpose, 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 purpose. God hides us for a purpose. You know why he hides us for a purpose? He hides us because there is a bigger purpose that is attached to your life. Do you realize that? There is a bigger purpose that is attached to your life. Truth be told, there are moments, I'll be honest, when I was stuck on the couch, I thought I forfeited my purpose. I was hiding. My backside of my mountain was my couch in my apartment. I didn't really want to go anywhere. I thought I had forfeited the promise or the purpose that was on my life. I was really just sitting here waiting for bad things to happen. I just couldn't see any good things transpiring in my life, not in the current position I was in. I was on the backside of the mountain. But little did I know that even though I was on the backside of my mountain, God had never relinquished me of the purpose that was on my life. In fact, Moses thought his life was over when he fled to Midian. But really, it was just the beginning. Because when he gets to Midian, first of all, he sees some young ladies, Jethro's daughters, who were trying to feed their sheep or trying to feed their animals, right? And there were some other shepherds, some mean shepherds, who had tried to run the girls off and didn't want to let them do. Moses stood up for them. Moses always trying to stand up for justice. I mean, you know something? When it's in you, it's just in you. I mean, you'll even have a heart for strangers when purpose is on you. I never will forget my son. I could drive him around Metro Atlanta when he was a lot younger. And sometimes we would pass by some of the homeless camps. And Trey would get real silent. Trey would get really silent. And sometimes I'd look like I would almost see a tear come to his eyes because he just had a heart for justice. He had a heart to see the marginalized and the least of these. He had a heart to see those individuals in a better state or in a better place. So it was like he had purpose that was attached to his life. When you have purpose attached to your life, even when you're on the backside of the mountain, even when you're in your metaphorical Midian, it's really, even though it looks like the end, it's really not the end. It's really just the beginning. Because Moses, I told you his life was broken up into 3 portions. There was the first 40 years, then there was the next 40 years, and then the final 40 years in the wilderness. This was the beginning of the next phase of his life. Because after he stood up for Jethro's daughters, then Jethro said, why didn't y'all bring him home so we can feed him? Jethro ended up giving him one of his wives by the name of Zipporah. They ended up starting to have children, and Moses ended up staying there for 40 years. Let me give you an example. Sometimes a job loss, a breakup, or even a failure feels like an ending, but you know what it is? It's really like God pulling you into a slingshot and pulling that slingshot back so that he can propel you into purpose. I'm preaching better than y'all letting on tonight. I promise I'm teaching better than y'all letting on tonight. The reason you're on the backside of your mountain right now is because you have a purpose. If you did not have a purpose, God would not have kept his hand on you. See, what you thought you were running from was actually God leading you to. I wish I had a witness right there. What you thought was what you actually thought you were running from was actually God hiding you and propelling you towards your purpose. Let me ask you a question. If you believe God has you hidden for a purpose right now, drop the term purpose in the chat. I know he has me hidden. Some of the stuff I've been through, it has to be for a purpose. But I understand that life has a way of lending lessons, right? He lends the lessons. But what we fail to do a lot of times is we fail to consider the clues. Does that make sense? I mean, we think that because we're in the process, see, we're groaning and moaning and we're whining and complaining instead of sitting down and learning the lesson that the Lord is lending to us in this particular moment. Anything you go through, when you become mature enough, when anything that you go through, you need to ask God, what is the purpose in what I am going through? That's why in 53 years of life, you know what? I don't have a fear of loss anymore. Because I understand what grandmama and them used to say, where he leads me, I will follow. If he leads me in the valley, wherever he tells me to go, I'm willing to go simply because I understand that purpose is attached to my life. And let me tell you this, when purpose is attached to your life, you're not the only one who sees it. You're not the only one who sees it when purpose is attached to your life. The enemy knows when purpose is attached to your life. So immediately he views you as a threat. He views you as an enemy. He views you as someone who could potentially put a chink in his armor, or you can thwart his plan because you have purpose on your life. When you have purpose, you know what that means? You have influence. And when you have influence, that means you can attract people. And when you can attract people, that means you can lead people. And when you can lead people, that means you can lead people out of their current situations, out of their current circumstances, out of their current statuses in life. And the enemy does not want you to lead people. My mission, my purpose, part of it is to help men and women get unstuck. That's my purpose. So do you think the enemy wants me to do that? Do you think the enemy wants me to operate in my calling? You know why? He does not, because he wants to keep people stuck. He wants to keep you stuck in a state of stagnation, because he knows that if you're stuck in a state of stagnation, then that means you won't be fruitful. And if you're not, y'all ain't talking to me tonight. Y'all ain't talking to me. I get it. I understand. I'm the only one. I get it. Is there anybody here other than me that understands that you have a purpose? You were created for a purpose. In fact, the psalmist said when God made you, he had you in mind. He made you, he constructed you, he formulated you. In fact, he made you just a little bit lower than the angels and gave you a song that the angels can't even sing. Why? Because we've been redeemed by. So every now and then he'll send you to the backside of the mountain, not to make you bitter. Y'all hear me? He doesn't send us to the backside of the mountain, Kim Robinson, to make us bitter. He doesn't send us to the backside of the mountain, Shedrick Williams, to make us bitter. He sends us to the backside of the mountain to make us better. But isn't it funny that when you get to the backside of the mountain, he's already, here it is. And here's our next point. After we discover our purpose, we discover that God gives us provision. He gives us provision. When he gets to the backside of the mountain, he's running. Doesn't even know where he's going to end up. Elijah did something similar. When Jezebel put a bounty out on his life, the Bible said Elijah ran a day's journey into the wilderness and sat up under a juniper tree and asked the Lord, or requested the Lord to take away his life. I mean, and even there, God gave him provision. The angel showed up, even at the juniper tree. At the juniper tree, the angel showed up, said, this journey is too great for you, fed him, and said, you need to get up because we got work to do. But not only that, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. God provides provision. When he gets there, there's a well, there's his wife. Eventually, that's his wife. And then he ends up staying there. How long? 40 years. In Midian, Moses found provision. He found Jethro. He found a new family. He received a new assignment. And he even found a wife. Because here it is. Sometimes God hides you in places you didn't expect so he can provide what you didn't even know you needed. I'm preaching better than y'all letting on tonight. Sometimes God will hide you in places you didn't even expect so he can provide what you didn't even know you needed. Did you realize that one of the attributes of God is omniscience? And what the term omniscience means is that there's no spot that he is not, right? Everywhere God is able to be everywhere at the same time, right? So and not only that, that's omnipresent, but he also, omniscient means he knows all things. So with him knowing all things, he knows what we need even before we ask for it, right? But sometimes we're not in the position to receive it simply because of what I said earlier, because we've heard too much noise, right? There's always the noise. See, the enemy always wants to keep noise because he is the author of confusion. God is not the author of confusion. So somebody has to be attributed as the author. He's the author of confusion. So what he wants to do is he wants to keep us confused by turning up the noise. And as he turns up the noise in our life, then we are unable to see. Come on. Or hey, what's up, Kimala? How you doing? We're unable to hear from God like we should, right? And we miss it even when God is trying to bless us. See, we thought we received a death sentence, but it really was not a death sentence. It was a deliverance moment because God was placing you in a position not to make you bitter, but to make you better. God was setting you up for the next level in your life. Kimmel, I wish you were on. You could sing it for me. But Daryl Coley was on it. I told you when he said he's preparing me for something that I'm joking. I'm singing it up. But Daryl Coley was the greatest singer to ever live, so I ain't gonna try to emulate Daryl. But Daryl said he's preparing me for something I cannot handle right now. He's making me ready for the next manner. And that's what God does. But while you go through that process, or while you go through that period, what God does is he gives us provision. Ask Elijah. Elijah was by the brook of Kerith in the middle of a famine. But because he went to Ahab and Jezebel and gave an unpopular message that a lot of people would not have been had the courage to do, God gave him provision. God, every day, God caused the brook of Kerith to flow with water. When there was no more water in the earth because there was a drought and a famine, there was water where Elijah was. And not only that, but every day he reversed the nature of ravenous birds that ate meat, held the meat in their beaks until they showed up every day to Elijah with sirloin tips and biscuits, because God will isolate you to elevate you. If that's your testimony, put that in the chat. What God will do is God will isolate you so that he can elevate you. Has anybody ever been there before? Have you ever gone through a period of isolation only to discover later on that it was a setup for elevation? Once you quit murmuring, complaining, kicking, and screaming because you're all alone, you later discovered that do you realize that some people go crazy because they can't stand being alone? I mean, that's one of the punishments when people go to prison. They put them in solitary confinement. They put them in a closed area, small room, 24 hours, 24 hours a day in this isolation. And some people can't handle being alone. I ain't gonna lie. When I first started being alone after my divorce, it was tough, man. It was rough. I mean, Sue-Ann, when I first started, isolation, I didn't realize that isolation would later lead to elevation. Isolation for me, I heard oh God. Isolation for me was isolation for me was I could hear silence that sounded like noise, right? Real talk. Isolation. It felt like real talk. It felt like the walls were closing in on me, right? Because the silence. Because I'm so used to hearing the dog barking. I was so used to hearing the girls. They didn't really argue a lot, but at least I heard their voices. Every now and then. That it was different for me in that particular season of my life. So because it was different for me, I wasn't used to being alone. I wasn't comfortable being alone. And so here, what God does for Moses is he takes him out of the palace. Because in the palace, I'm sure he had 1,700 thread count sheets. In the palace, I'm sure he had servants, access to servants. I'm sure that he had a smorgasbord of different types of meat and different types of vegetables and everything, every creature comfort that he could have wanted in life. He could just ring his bell or hit his gong, and there would be people who would come and attend to him because of the creature comforts that were afforded to him. And some of you got so accustomed to certain creature comforts. If you've never read my book, you probably should. I tell the story, and I'm laughing, but I'm very serious. Kim, I'm laughing, but very serious. Kimala, Cynthia, I'm really laughing, but I'm very serious. It was so different because in the old house, what I was used to, I could go to the linen closet and there were like satin sheets, there were colored sheets, there were different thread count sheets, there were, all kind of things that were accessible to me as a married man because, that was what I became accustomed to. But when I got divorced and I made my bed, I don't have that bed no more, thank God. But when I made my bed, when I went to the linen closet, it wasn't satin sheets, it wasn't 1,700 thread count sheets. There weren't several different comforters there. None of those things were readily available to me anymore. Really, the only sheets that were in the closet was, I think, some beige sheets, maybe some white sheets, some sheets I picked up at Walmart that were 400 thread count. They didn't even need to put the little 400 on the package because, those wasn't the softest sheets but I had gotten so accustomed to certain things. So when I was in isolation, honestly, I thought I was being punished. Have you ever been there before? Fact of the matter is, when I was in isolation, or when I had got sentenced to my backside of my mountain, honestly, real talk, I thought I was being punished. In fact, I thought I was being punished for what I forfeited. I thought I was punished for the bad mistakes I had made, for the bad decisions that I had made. I thought I was being punished, but little did I know that even in the punishing, that he would still provide for me. Does that make sense? Is there anyone under the sound of my voice that can testify, that will tell the truth, that even in moments of isolation, that God provided for you? Because see, sometimes isolation can be equated to a strange place. I preached a sermon one time entitled Meeting God in Strange Places, where the psalmist said, if I make my bed in hell, God, thou art there. If I'm on the mountaintop, I'm wherever I am, God is. And even if I'm on the backside of the mountain, even if I'm in a adverse circumstance that's not comfortable. And I'm gonna tell you how bad it got for me. It got so bad for me that at that time I only had one television, and that television was in the front room, right in front of the couch. So I would sleep on the couch, eat on the couch, watch TV on the couch, entertain on the couch. Everything I did it on that couch. I did everything on that couch. And so a lot of times I didn't. Can we talk for a moment? Can I be transparent? A lot of times I didn't go to bed. I fell asleep. Does that make sense? And a lot of times I didn't go to bed because I didn't want to face the dreams that I would face. And if I faced the dreams, or if I went to sleep, that meant I had to wake up tomorrow and deal with another day, because my days at that time didn't feel like good days outweighed bad days. Felt like the bad days outweighed the good days in that period of isolation that I was in. And I don't know who I'm talking to, because some of y'all, I know you got to act like everything is well and swell in your life. I know you got to act like you got to put on the mask. You got to put on the ego. You got to look the part. You got to go, man, I get it. You got to put on and some of y'all got to put up makeup. Some of y'all have, and I'm talking metaphorically. I'm not trying to talk about your skin tone or how you look, but some of you have to put on makeup to walk out of the house, because you don't want them to see the tear marks. You don't want them to see the bags under your eyes from staying up all night from crying because you don't like your current socioeconomic state in life. The truth be told, because you don't feel like you have a purpose. Come closer. Come closer. Let's talk. I want to talk to somebody. I want somebody who's going to be honest. I want somebody who's going to be transparent, right? Because this is a strange place that you have found yourself in. But even in this strange place, oh God, even in this strange place, you have discovered that the same God, come here, Holy Ghost, the same God that's in the hills blesses in the valley. The same God that blesses on the mountaintop has a way of blessing us even in the valley low. If you let God be God, and if you trust God in the midst of the process, and if you believe that God is seated on a throne of sovereignty, has a remote control of omnipotency, and is navigating and controlling everything that transpires in your life, if you believe that, then you realize that where you are there for a purpose, and you're trusting God to provide for you, even in perilous places. I'm preaching better than y'all let know, and I promise I am. I had to learn that even in perilous places, even in problematic places, even in spaces that felt uncomfortable, even in tight spaces, in moments where I felt like giving up, moments where I felt like throwing in the towel, even in the most negative spot, God still showed up. I'm preaching better than y'all on letting on. Y'all ain't giving me no amens tonight. Testify. Has God ever provided for you in a strange place? If he has, just say, yes, he has. Just say, yes, he has. Say, yes, he has. He has provided. God provided for Moses. Look at Moses now. Look at Moses now. Get out, man. You go kick rocks. I'm joking. I'm telling Ahmad Kingwood to kick rocks. That's one of my former co-workers. How you doing, young man? You doing pretty good? But yeah, even in strange places. I was in a strange place for about 4 or 5 months. Didn't know why I took the job. I really did, because I said I would never work for anybody again. I made that a declaration. But when I got there, I learned why. Now, I learned the lesson pretty fast. So it was at any point we could move on. At any point we could move on. And I didn't know when it was going to take place. I was like, God, whenever you're ready for me to move, I'm ready to move. I was going to hang around as long as I could. But I got the lesson within the first 2 months. See, anytime God takes you to a space or puts you in a position, he's putting you in that position, number one, for a blessing, and number two, for a lesson. But the problem is, a lot of us don't take the time. We're so busy looking for the blessing that we mess around and miss the lesson. I'm preaching better than y'all are letting on tonight. Sometimes, we miss the blessing. We miss the lesson because we're too busy looking for a blessing. And let me tell you, one thing I had to learn is sometimes blessing don't always come in the form of money. Sometimes blessings come in the peace of mind. Sometimes blessings come in the form of the lesson that he gives you that's going to take you to the next level in life. Sometimes the blessing comes. Listen, everything happens for a reason. Moses unalived the Egyptian. He takes off running, thinks he's running from Pharaoh, but instead of running from Pharaoh, he's running towards his purpose. And when he gets to his purpose, guess what he runs into? He runs into provision, because like I just told you a minute ago, when he gets there, there's water, there's a wife, and you know why all those things are there? Because he had a will. And all God needs from you, all God needs from you, he don't need no hold. He don't need, all God needs is your will. And if you align your will with his will, y'all ever notice that when a car starts to, your car can be going straight for so long, but after so long, involuntarily or involuntarily, the car will start to veer right or left on its own. It'll go right or left. And in that moment, it needs a wheel alignment. It needs a WHEEL, wheel alignment. And you take that car to that car to a mechanic. And when you take that car to a mechanic, what the mechanic does is the mechanic, he uses certain tools and apparatuses, right? He uses certain tools and certain apparatuses to take a car that wouldn't go straight. When he does his thug thizzle, the car that wouldn't go straight ends up going straight because it went through a wheel alignment. Listen, when you and I learn how to align our will with God's will, a path that used to be crooked, a path that would lead us or veer us into all kinds of different directions, when we do it the way God tells us to do it and align our will according to his will, then what God does is, you know what? He gives us provision. He gives us provisions. I mean, let me just ask a question. Has God not met every need in your life? Has God? When I'm talking about when you turned it over to him, when you stop worrying about it. When you gave it all up and you said, I'm through worrying about it. When you stop worrying about it, how many of you can testify that when you stopped worrying about it, everything ended up working out anyway? Because it had to work out by the evidence by the fact that you're still here. Because you could have expired in that car accident that you almost had. You came that close. Last week I was riding down the street, down Jonesboro Road, and I was headed towards Wingtopia to get some wings. And I was driving, and I had a flashback. Anybody else ever had a flashback? I had a flashback. And that flashback was about, I think it was 2001. That's 24 years ago. I was leaving Willett Honda and was going to meet a friend. Friend was following me, and I was looking in the rearview mirror and wasn't looking in the front. And I tried to make a left turn into a parking lot, but I didn't see that Mitsubishi Montero that was coming head on. And I had a head-on collision in a 1998 Honda Civic, I think it was. And when I hit it so hard that we hit head on, and the impact, I probably was going 40 miles per hour. It just knocked me straight back. All the plastic on the dashboard was exploded. I mean, I don't even think we had, I don't even know if I had airbags in that car or not. But I mean, the engine, I mean, even the containers underneath the hood, they were, destroyed. I mean, it was a bad accident. But if God didn't have a purpose in my life, I could have expired in that moment. But I got out of the car, was able to walk around, and they asked me if I needed an ambulance. I said, no, I don't need an ambulance. I'm good. And my friend took me home. Next day, went to church, never went to the house, any of those things. Now, the reason he kept me around is because I had purpose. And that was 24 years ago. Right? So when you realize you have a purpose, he'll give you, he'll preserve you. But not only will he preserve you for your purpose, but he'll provide provision. And you know why he provides for you like he does? Because he's setting you up for a promotion. Somebody type that in the chat. Tell somebody, the only reason he kept me around, Ahmad Kingwood. I call you Jawan. I don't know. Every time I see Ahmad, it messes me up. The only reason he keeps you in the game so long, or one of the reasons he keeps you in the game so long, and this is the thing about it, he wouldn't keep you in the game so long if it wasn't something on the backside of what you're going through. The challenge is, do you hang around long enough to receive the blessing that he's trying to take you to? He's trying to promote you. He would eventually promote Moses if Moses hung around long enough. Watch this. Listen, let me say this, and y'all can put this in. Y'all might want to tweet this, put it on Facebook, whatever. But watch this. Before God promotes you publicly, he'll test you privately. Before God promotes you publicly, he'll test us privately. In Midian, Moses was a shepherd, right? And prior to him becoming a shepherd, he was in the house. Remember I told you he was educated amongst the Egyptians. Dressed like an Egyptian, walked like an Egyptian, talked like an Egyptian, was educated, but culturally he was still a Hebrew. And he was a Hebrew with a calling on his life. And because of that call, and see, God, if he calls you, he prepares you. Does that make sense? See, God's grace will not lead you where he cannot keep you. So wherever he leads you, he's able to keep you. And so if he has plans to promote you, trust me, he has a process that he wants you to go through before you experience the promotion. You wonder why you have not been promoted yet, because you didn't want to participate in the process. That's simple. And then sometimes what we do, and I did it for years, Jawan. I did it for years, Cynthia. I did it for Kim Robinson. I did it for years. So many times when God is taking us to the process or to take us through the process, when he's preparing to take us through the process, what we end up doing is we end up trying to circumvent the process. I'm going to be honest, I got almost 2 master's degrees. But at a certain point, I stopped learning because I figured out how to pass the class. That's not a flex, though. What difference does it make to get a whole bunch of A's if you don't learn the lessons that are intended that come along with those A's? It doesn't make sense, right? So if God is testing you, make sure you get the lessons that are intended so that you can get the necessary material that prepares you for the test of life. Watch this. If Moses couldn't lead sheep, he surely wouldn't be able to lead people. So to prepare Moses to be able to lead sheep, he does a couple of different things. He takes him to the wilderness, Midian, so he could lead sheep, so that he could lead other sheep through the same type of wilderness when the time came. Isn't that just like God? To prepare you for what you're about to go through. Thank you, life's lessons. Thank you, the stuff that I've been through. Thank God for those lessons. Because you know what? I feel like I understand the songwriters when the songwriter said, if I never had a problem, I wouldn't have known that God could solve it. If I never went through the stuff that I went through, I would have known that God would help me win through it. Because at the end of the day, when God puts you in that position, he's putting you in that position because he understands that there's going to be, it didn't used to be called graduation. It used to be called promoting. You know, you would get promoted to the next grade. You get promoted to the next grade. Some of us are stuck in kindergarten because we've never been promoted. Some of us are stuck in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. You can tell by the way you handle the problems of life. You can tell how you handle. I mean, just let a crisis come your way. Soon as a crisis come your way, what's first thing you do? Oh, woe is me. Oh, God don't love me. I'm in a bad situation again. I mean, every time I turn around, it's always going from bad to worse. I mean, and I'm going to tell you like this. Let me just say it like this. Let me say it like this. Let me say it like this. Let me say it like this. I just don't believe that God will lead you anywhere that he can't keep you. But if you do like Dwayne Woods and say, as soon as I stop worrying how the story ends, that's when I let go. I let God have his way. And then I understood that was a blessing in the lesson. The blessing wasn't what I was looking for. It was a lesson. And when I understood and realized that it was a lesson, then I understood that I got a true blessing. I'm looking for the God in anything that I'm going through. God, what are you trying to teach me? What is it that you want me to learn in this current circumstance, in this current situation? I'm trying to figure that out. You know why? Because I want to be promoted. I want to go to the next level. When people call me on the phone and they're in need of resources, I want to have favor on my life in such a way that I can point them in the right direction, so that someone who is considering or contemplating harming themselves. Brother that called me last week, he said, "Man, James, I feel like I'm not supposed to say the word die, but I feel like that's going to happen to me where I am." I said, "Do you feel like you're going to do it to yourself, or you feel like life is happening?" He said, No, I feel like life. I said, okay, I just need to understand that, because if that's what you feel like you're going to do it to yourself, then this conversation is about to change. I got to get you on the phone with somebody else. And I'm praying that God give me the wisdom to deal with that. But if I was complaining about being on the backside of the mountain all the time, if I was complaining about my current socioeconomic status changing, if I had a woe as me mentality, then I would miss what God was providing, the lesson that God was providing, and I would end up having to repeat the same grade. Because let me tell you this: I know we live in a society that loves to hand out participation trophies. I'm not in a hurry tonight because I ain't got to go to work tomorrow. Hallelujah. But if we live in a society, we live in a society that hands out participation trophies. Just because you showed up, you get to participate. You don't got to do no work. You don't have to really excel. You don't have to not even overachieve. You don't even really have to achieve. And they just gonna promote you. That's not how God works. And you don't want God to work like that, because you got to understand, with every new level, there's a new devil, and the skills necessary to whoop the devil on the next level, you have to pick those skills up on this level. And that's the problem. A lot of us, because we've not picked up the necessary skills to fight in this war, in this spiritual warfare that we're facing, because we've not picked up the necessary skills, we're not promoted, and we try to operate in areas that we were not assigned to operate in. And because we were not assigned to operate in those areas, when we end up facing the enemy, you know what the enemy does? He has a way of annihilating us. And we end up doing more harm than good. And all we had to do was do what grandmama and them said. All grandmama and them said do was turn it over to Jesus and watch him work it out. Does that make sense? If you really want to be promoted, you got to understand that before he can promote you, you have to be prepared. Promotion comes after preparation. Think about it. That small business, that volunteer role, that season of obscurity, that's your minion. That's your training ground. When I first went back to work at the dealership, I'm not going to say it because they're not paying me to advertise, so I'm not going to say it. But when I went back to work, some of the stuff I started dealing with, I'm like, Lord, why in the heck? Oh, oops. Why in the heck? I'm sorry, my bad. Why in the world did you bring me back to this? I mean, I don't want, just seemed like I had more trouble. Couldn't say it. The bass in my voice was a problem. I didn't even say anything to people. And I'm almost in HR. Everything, it was a season of obscurity, but I didn't realize that God was trying to teach me leadership skills. He was trying to say, okay, you got this influence at home by yourself. You've been in this period of isolation for so long, and I think you're healed. And in fact, I know you're healed, but I need you to know you're healed. So I'm going to put you in an obscure place where you have to lead, where you have to deal with people, and you have to win them over. And mission accomplished. And once the assignment was complete, it was time to move on. Some of us right now are hidden some of you right now, you are in a hidden training season. And that's your Midian. Moses had his Midian, but you have yours. Let me say that again. Moses had his Midian, but he's not the only one who has a Midian. We all have a Midian. It's our hidden training season, but we just have not taken the time to recognize it because we're too busy complaining when we should be understand that we're being prepared. So not only do we discover that after the first four were protection, preservation, preparation, and patience, then we discovered that there's a purpose. We discovered that God provides provision, and which leads to promotion. But once it leads to promotion, Cynthia, you know what happens next? We have power. We have power. And that power doesn't manifest. I know y'all like to use that word these days. I get it. Y'all like to use that manifest word. I'm gonna use that one right quick. Because that power shut up, Jay. To talk to myself. Because that power doesn't manifest, you don't think you have it. But if you've gone through the process of preparation and you were faithful to that process, God promotes you. And when he promotes you, the promotion comes coupled with power. So finally, after years of hiding, God shows up. See, that's why some of you all quit. That's why some of y'all pronounced the benediction. That's why some of you all really was ready to walk away and go back like Peter and the boys when they thought Jesus had went on to heaven and left them. First thing they did was they said, we're going to go with what we know. We're going to go back to our vocation. I'm going fishing. That's what they said. Go back to what. And let me just drop this one for free. Thank you, Donald Parsons. When you continue to go with what you know, you always end up where you were. Listen, when you continue to go with what you know, you always, never fails. When you continue to go with what you know, you always end up where you were. And when you do that, you end up failing to acknowledge the power. It doesn't mean that the power is not there. You're just not operating in that power. And even in that moment of preparation, God doesn't always reveal himself. Sometimes what God does, rather than reveal himself, is like he'll do it like Elijah. He'll send ravens with sirloin tips and biscuits. Sometimes, like he did with Elijah, like he did with Elijah, he'll send an angel, like he did under the juniper tree. He doesn't always show up, even when I talk about, God showed up at the juniper tree. He showed up at Kerith in the form of an angel, in form of a raven. But when Elijah was in the cave after the hurricane and the fire and all those things, God showed up. And when God showed up, he didn't show up like we thought he would show up, right? Because sometimes we think God ought to show up one way because we have this preconceived notion of how God should show up, right? See, we feel like if he doesn't show up splitting the Red Sea or walking on water or healing a man with a withered hand, if he's not doing some type of miraculous thing, we don't think it's God. We don't think that he's shown up. But at the end of the day, God had been there the whole time. You just didn't recognize it. He showed up in provision. He showed up in power. He showed up in preparation. But because you didn't notice it, you didn't think God was there. But truth of the matter is, the whole time, the entire time, God was there. He just hadn't manifested. I'm gonna do it again. Yeah, I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm gonna use that word one more time. He just had not manifested himself yet. That's what he does. And because we have not seen it, because some of us live in a. Cynthia, can you and I talk? Because y'all don't want to. Listen. Sometimes we have this preconceived notion of how God should show up, and because he has not shown up like that, we say it's not God. God sent an angel. Y'all remember the story about there was somebody who was drowning. They were sitting on the rooftop, and they were waiting on God to show up, and God sent boats and different ways for the person to be delivered. And then, but the person didn't, because it didn't look like God, or their preconceived notion of how God should look, because it didn't look like that. They didn't take the boat, they didn't take the jet ski, didn't take the way of deliverance, and because they didn't take it, they ended up passing away. And when they saw God, they said, "God, I thought you were going to show up for me." And he said, "I did, but when it showed up, you didn't recognize it." God made sure Moses recognized him. God made sure Moses recognized. How did God make sure he recognized? He made sure he recognized him because he showed up in the form of a burning bush. In fact, he showed up in the form of a burning bush and spoke to Moses out of that burning bush. Can I ask you a question? I'm cutting across the field. I'm about to go. Can I ask you a question? Has there ever been a time that God spoke to you out of your hot situation? I'm preaching better than y'all letting on. Has there ever been a time that God spoke to you out of a hot situation? It was a situation that you thought God had forgotten about you. And I told you all the process of preservation. There's a process, there's a point where the fruit has to be put in a pan and the heat has to be applied to change the form of the fruit so that the fruit could go through the process of preservation. Likewise, we get in hot situations. And sometimes the heat is turned up so hot that we forget that we have access to a God who speaks to us out of those situations. But here's the question. Are you able to recognize the voice of God when he speaks to you out of those situations? God showed up on the backside of the mountain in Midian for Moses in that hot place in the form of a burning bush. And you know what God said to him? Now it's time. I don't know who I'm talking to now, but I believe that some of you have been on the backside of the mountain and you are in a place of obscurity. You are in a strange place because God has taken you through a period of isolation. But little did you know, while you were in that place of isolation, getting the lesson that was intended for you, little did you know that isolation would lead to elevation. Little did you know that isolation, your alone moments, being by yourself, little did you know that those moments of isolation were really periods of preparation. And now God is ready to speak to you. In fact, God is speaking to you tonight, and he's telling you now it's time. You have an assignment. Your assignment is to speak to the spiritual pharaohs that are holding certain people who are attached to you in bondage. And it's time for you to tell Pharaoh to let your people go. Here's the revelation. The same Moses who once killed in his own strength is now called to deliver in God's strength. Listen, power does not come from hiding. Power comes from being hidden until God delivers you. And then when he delivers you, here's the real power. The real power comes when you realize that he was hiding you until it was time to reveal you. That's why I don't mind singing the song. Please be patient with me. Will you do it? Will you please be patient with me? Why? Because God is not through with me yet. But here's the revelation. When God gets through with me, I shall come forth as pure gold. And pure gold, my brothers and sisters, is tried by fire. Oh, yes, it is. Pure gold. I'm not talking about fool's gold. I'm not talking about gold overlay, 14 karat gold overlay. But pure gold, and I'm told now gold is at an all-time high because the value of dollar is going so low. But pure gold, once it's been tried by fire, that's what makes it pure, because the fire has the way of getting the impurities out of the gold. God had to allow light to heat up on you. God had to allow Cynthia, Kim, for us, Shamika, for some of us to go through some very hot situations. But he was doing that because he realized you was going to have to go through an enemy. And when you go to that enemy, one of the enemy's names is Satan, Satanus Diablos. The word Satan, Satanus, means the accuser of the brethren. So God uses those hot situations to get the impurities out of us, so that when the enemy tries to accuse us of something, when he tries to remind us of our past, we can say, oh, no, you can't use that against me anymore, because you can, as you try to remind me of my past, you can remind the enemy of his future that ends in the lake of fire. Yeah. So the final thing we receive when we get on the backside of the mountain is power. That's why things that used to bother me, they don't bother me anymore. You know why? Because now I have power. So family, remember this, and I'm closing. I'm cutting across the field. It's been a good night tonight. I appreciate you all. The phone line is there. If you would like to call in right quick, if you have a testimony, if you are on the backside of the mountain, or if you're in your Midian right now, and you want to talk about it, you want to testify, I got the phone line open, because otherwise I'm about to roll, get up out of here. If you would like to support the platform, there are ways to do that. There the Cash App is, there the Zelle is, and there the PayPal is. You're welcome to do that. If you would like to order any merchandise like our t-shirts or anything, please, ma'am, please, sir, go to our website. There it is, go.theintellectualstew.com/home. Go.theintellectualstew.com/home. If you're not currently following us on YouTube, follow us on YouTube at The Intellectual Stew. I think it's The Intellectual Stew with James Kirklin, or with the Mind Massager, one of those. If you're not following us on YouTube, I need you to do that for me, please, ma'am. Please, sir, go follow us on YouTube, so we can do that. If you like I said, if you'd like to call in, there the phone number is 404-860-2775. If you were blessed by the message tonight, please, ma'am, please, sir, consider being a financial blessing to this platform. I told y'all I'm unemployed now, so, well, at least I'm unemployed by the dealership. God always has me employed, so we're gonna be all right. But remember, Moses wasn't hiding; he was being hidden, and maybe just maybe, so are you. Hidden for protection, hidden for preservation, hidden for preparation, hidden for patience, hidden for purpose, hidden for provision, hidden for promotion, and also hidden for power. Don't despise your hidden season. It might just be the place that God is shaping you for destiny. Before we close, I want to hear from you. What spoke to you most tonight? Which P is your season? Right now, drop it in the comments and let us stew together. And remember, join me again next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, our brand new time for the Intellectual Stew. Always bring your questions, bring your friends, and bring your faith, because we're not just talking, we're stewing over Scripture. So do me a favor. If you're not following me, like I said, on IG, if you're not following me on YouTube, please, ma'am, please, sir, do that. Follow us. If you want to support, there are ways to do so. Okay. As I say in closing all the time, I'm going to have some giveaways next week. So I have some giveaways I'm going to be giving away. So let people know that we're going to be having some giveaways, but they have to be here in order to win. Okay. As I say in closing all the time, the world is changing. My question for you is, why do you remain the same? I appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Y'all have a good night. See you next time.
Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirklin.
Powerful and provocative, prophetic and practical,
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of it. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do.
Intellectual stew.
Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Intellectual